Recently, though, congratulations on another state title.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Thank you.
just got it done. Arguably the hardest one, maybe, of, generally speaking, that any schools, any program, anywhere has had to endure. Walk me through what this whole season looked like.
Oh,
man.
boy. Yeah. Well, I'll even back up from that. Let's
Okay.
go back to March of last year.
Sure.
On the bus, driving to Tulsa, on the way to the state tournament, trying to, at every whim that I possibly could, to just go ahead and just leave my phone turned off.
Right.
To not,
Willful
not
ignorance.
get that phone call.
Right.
But I got the phone call.
Right.
And it's like, hey, you need to turn around and come home. And so we pulled off the road, and I took we went off to just an exit, found a spot. I told the kids, I said, look, this doesn't mean it's over, but we got to go home right now. They canceled it for this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just trying to explain that to kids and decipher it yourself is challenging and was challenging. But I use that as that was our moment, our point, that now we started preparing for this year, because it never happened, and as the days went longer and longer, we kind of started realizing this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And they shut everything down, and just a challenging deal, because our kids were playing really well. I mean, Del City was without a doubt the front runner at the time. We had played them twice and split with them, so their loss was to us, and then they beat us as well. So, we're looking at it like a challenge. Hey, let's get back and let's take a shot at them again.
Right.
But we know they're the best team. We were playing really well, so we felt like, it was a good time for us. So that being said, then everything just goes in the tank after that. You can't see your kids, you can't get together, you can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the hunger of our kids when they came back to school to try to make up for that was really key. And gosh, for me to have a group that I have of seniors,
right.
We got 11 seniors, ended up with 11,
Sheesh.
10 suiting up, 6 that were our main core of players, all seniors.
Right.
And for those kids to have matured and grown up enough to be able to handle some of that, and then put their heart and soul back out there again and go, okay, coach, we did all this for you last year, and it got yanked out.
Yeah.
You're asking me to do it again. And I said, yeah, I am. And so with that group, it was really made it easier on me to have a group of kids like that mature, that could handle that and go through that process. And actually, once it got started, we just went back to the grind. It's like, hey, here's what we normally do in August. Here's what we normally do in September. October 1 is practice. Here's what we do in October. Let's roll. Let's go. And they just embraced it. They worked. They did all we asked them to do. We played in masks. We practiced in masks. We just, whatever we had to do to try to get to play. And those guys just embraced it all year long. And we were pretty good at the beginning of the year, but we were a whole lot better when it came to March. And that's, as a coach, what you want. You want your kids to be the best they can be. And our level of confidence just shot through the roof about the last 2 or 3 weeks. And we lost some games in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Kingfisher put it on us here. They played really well, really gave us some fits defensively. And that was a tough loss to take, because we knew they were talented. Obviously they won 4A, and they're arguably one of the best teams in the state, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
But our kids really responded from that, and then we had to turn around and play Del City again, and we got beat by them. And so, but our kids were very resilient. They never lost focus of what our goal was, and we didn't end up losing a game to 5A. We lost to Heritage Hall, we lost to Kingfisher, number 1, number 2 in 4A.
Right, yep.
We lost twice to Del City, who won the state championship in 6A. So those are our 4 losses. So for our kids to be able to bounce back from those and really see the goal that we still had in mind, just as a tribute to them, and so it's been a grind. It really has. Just the quarantines, hey, you can't come to the gym for 10 days, you're out. This kid's on the close contact list, and that kind of stuff. Just our kids really rolled with it, and just never lost focus of what we were our ultimate goal was, and that was to try to win it.
What about the initial return from the first quarantine? How hungry were those guys, man? Were they beating down the doors to get in here?
It was one of those things where, I just had to say, look, guys, we can't do that. We're not allowed to do these things. We can only do this.
Loopholes.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, just swing by the gym, open the door, whatever.
Just keep on grabbing.
Yeah, just step in. We'll get some shots up. We'll shut the door, And I was like, hey, I want to, but we gotta stick with the guidelines. And I mean, they were hungry. That's a great word for it. They were just chomping to get back to it and get going. And so we haven't lacked for that all year. I think the kids have really had a drive all year long to get to do that.
I mean, you know, we may not mention it much, but we do ask a lot of these young men and young women to stay dialed in for 9 months out of the year for this, you know, for this prize that we all hope to get in March. And they're 16 and 17 years old. You know, they're fickle day to day, you know, no matter how gifted or talented they are. So that, you know, kudos to you for figuring out a way to get it done, my man.
Well, it's, you know, again, having that many seniors, typically when you get to that point, if you have that many seniors on a team, that equals problems. I mean,
good point.
You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I'm not getting to play my minutes. This guy's taking too many shots. Why is he acting this way? And, you know, you have those kind of things a lot of times, and it's just, this is just a really special group. You know, we never had to deal with that. They loved to play together. They were very unselfish, but it is, you know, it is that thing. And you're looking at these young men that have gone through this historical struggle that none of us have ever been through.
Nobody.
And you're still asking them to do all the stuff that you normally would ask them to do. You know.
Oh man.
And so it is something else. Even in a normal situation, like you said, you know, you're asking 16, 17-year-old kids to give you 2.5, 3.5, whatever hours it might be during the preseason, and then come back and do it again the next day and do it right.
Yeah, and you know you're turning it way up on them.
Yes.
You know, you got to get after them. We got to push them to the limit.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, being here at Carl Albert High School, how long, Coach? Because as long as you're synonymous with this place.
This is my 18th year here at Carl Albert. Yes.
Okay, now did you start? I'm guessing you started off as an assistant at some point, right?
So here's how my beginning started. I got out of college as a computer programmer.
Really?
So that's actually my degree is in computer software.
Right.
And I worked at a software company for 7 years. I got a notion that, you know, this probably wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my career. You know, sitting in an office 8 to 5.
Yeah.
I got 2 weeks of vacation. I've got my wife and I were having children. I was like, I'm not going to get to see my kids. My younger brother was playing college basketball at the time. I thought, man, I miss this. I really miss this. And the Lord just made some avenues for me to really work through getting my college degree as far as my certification for education. And I started out as an assistant at Choctaw High School with my college teammate, Richard Thompson. He was the head coach. He hired me as a lay coach. It took me a couple of years to get my certification, and then they hired me on as a full-time teacher and coach. And he resigned the next year, right before school started.
I'm guessing you didn't see this coming at all.
Not at all. I had applied for a couple of jobs because I wanted to be a head coach, and I thought, you know, I'm ready for it, and nothing panned out. And right before school, maybe a month before school was starting, he just decided he would like to do something else. And I was actually on a road trip at a computer company doing some computer work and had applied for 2 jobs. And I talked to the athletic director, and they said, we're sorry, we've hired somebody else. So I'm coming home thinking, man, this is not working out.
No, it's not what I saw in my
I get home, and because this will date me a little bit about how old I am, on the answering machine at the house.
The landline.
The
yes,
landline.
Pre-sellers.
The landline answering machine had a message from the athletic director at Choctaw and said, hey, Coach Thompson has resigned. We would like to see if you'd be interested in the head coaching job. And so that was my first head coaching position, was at Choctaw. I was there for 8 years as the head coach. And then this opened up, which this is my alma mater. I went to school here, played here, very invested here with my family. And so just for the opportunity for me to come has been a blessing. And now I've been here for 18 years. So pretty cool.
Time
pretty
flies,
cool
man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Coach, can you think of one of those moments that was like, welcome to the business? You know, in your rookie season as a head coach, where you had to, maybe you were pressed in a way that, I didn't prepare for this one. Break it down for me.
Absolutely. My first couple of years we struggled, and we had a bunch of young kids. I had some sophomores that were pretty talented. They were.
Now, are we talking Choctaw?
This is Choctaw.
Okay.
This is still Choctaw. This is my first year. First year as head coach.
Green
as can be. You know, and I thought I knew everything. I grew up in a coach's house. You know, I played high school, played college. I got it all figured out.
Yeah.
And so we're in there, and I've got a large number of seniors on this team, and they were okay. They were good kids. They weren't great basketball players. Some of them weren't too bad, but this sophomore bunch was really talented, and they loved to play.
Right.
They loved to play. Well, slowly, I start leaking these sophomores into some playing time.
That's
well,
right.
things start coming out from under my feet at that point. You know, it got pretty rough, pretty dicey. We had a few parent meetings, had to go to the school board a couple of times. And
So that was the thing even before now.
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, yes. People were calling for my job, writing articles in the newspaper, you know, writing letters to the school. And it was a tough deal. Fortunately for me, having already been working in the business world for 7 or 8 years, I was a little older than a brand new coach coming in out of college.
Right.
So I was a little more mature in how to handle some of those situations, and but it was just surprising that it just hit me in the face like that. Like, man, this is my very first year, and people are calling for my job. They want me out of here. Now, my administration was fantastic. They stood behind me. 2 years later, that sophomore bunch went 19-7. We lost in overtime to go to the state tournament, and established at least ourselves as a solid team, somebody to be reckoned with a little bit. And so at that point, to me, it became evident about how important it was to invest in your program and your kids and not let all the rest of that stuff take away from what you're trying to do with your kids.
Yeah.
And through those years, golly, I can remember, this is a quote, this is no lie. This is during a time, or not a timeout, this is the end of a quarter. This was the end of the third quarter. We're down a good 30-something at that point. I looked at my kids on the bench and I said, you do not foul, you do not call timeout. We're getting this game over as quick as we can.
That's it.
And we're getting out of here because we're just getting drilled.
That's right.
And it was one of those things where you just don't, you're not going to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
They're way better than we are, and let's just get out of here, you know? But still trying to encourage those kids every time to, write on the whiteboard and say, okay, for us to win tonight, we got to do these things. And deep down in your heart, it's going to take a miracle for you to win.
Yeah.
But you're still telling those kids, here's what it takes. And so, those times where to me anyway, you have to go through some of those circumstances to be able to appreciate the other circumstances where you are successful and your kids are more talented. And it humbles you really quickly because, like I said, I grew up in a coach's house. I watched my dad, make it to the state tournament, win big games, and coach his kids hard. And, the kids played their tails off. And I just remember a lot of those things, and none of that was coming true for me. We're just getting thumped. We're winning 4 games in a year and just getting the stuff beat out of us.
That is not fun,
I'm going, this is not what I signed up for. But it helps you appreciate that part of it. Once you get through some of that and you get to see the successful side of it, you still grind it, you still work those kids, but now you start to see the fruit of that a little bit, and I think just learning that process early on was really helpful for me to not let some of those things ruffle my feathers. When parents get on you and they email you, they want to meet with you, it's fine. And I'm respectful to them. I say, look, you're a mom. You love your kid. You think your kid's the best. You should. But here's what I got to look at. He's not better than that kid.
Right.
Now I want him to be, and if he wants to be better, we'll help him get better. But right now he's not better than that kid. And that's worked sometimes, and people have embraced it, and their kids have gotten better, and others have said, well, we're going to go somewhere else. That's okay.
That's the climate we're in too.
That's it. So, and it makes me think of that whole transfer portal thing. It's like it's going on in high school now.
Oh yeah.
I'm not happy with you. I don't like how you do things. I'm gonna head somewhere else.
Yeah, within a year.
Yes.
So that's like,
yes.
What do we really? And I'm not a parent, so I try to be as empathetic as I can be, because to your points a while ago, it's like, hey man, you got somebody in this program that you love more than anybody.
Yes.
I get it.
Right.
But I gotta look at the big picture.
That's right.
Here.
That's right.
And it's like, but. To your getting your butts whooped point, because I just had a season like that this year. We had 4 wins, and we were taking them on the chin, Coach.
Yes.
I'm curious to know, what was it that you were able to do to keep those guys engaged enough, or interested enough to keep coming to work? Because when it sucks, it's tough to turn that motor over every day.
Absolutely. I think it's, part of that is you have to have invested enough in the time that you spent with those kids that what they've got to trust and believe in you of what you're teaching them, that it's the right things. Gotcha. And you have to give them that window that, hey, if you keep doing these things, there's going to be an opportunity for us. We're going to get to that point. It's not working right now. It's not happening right now, but you've got to continue to invest in what we're doing. and eventually it's gonna get there, And I mean, the years I had there at Choctaw, my first 2 years were both losing seasons. My first one was, we won. It was either 4 or 5 games. The next year was maybe 8 or 9, and then we won 19. Then we won 10. Then we won 16. So I thought, this is going well. Then it went downhill from there. We went back down to 8, 4, some of those years. But for me as a head coach, and I guess one of the pieces that I think is important is you've also got to kind of wrap your arms around your assistant coaches and say, hey, we're in this together.
Sure.
And you guys got to help me continue to build this culture and convince these kids that it is going to turn around. We are going to get there. And so that was one of the things for me is I was very confident in what I was telling them and what I was teaching them and what I felt like what I wanted the culture of my program to be. And you just stick with it and you stay with it and you stay with it and you stay with it. And kids see, as a coach, if you start to waver and just start guessing around at what you want to do, I remember some years watching OU football, they'd change offenses 2 or 3 times in the same year. And I'm like, whoa, these kids they're not invested in, they don't see that trust factor that they need to have. And I think that's something that's really important is kids have to believe in you. And so therefore you got to stay consistent with what you are true to and what you want your program to be like. And then as that culture evolves into that, those kids start to embrace it. And then now, I mean, obviously we all know this in the coaching, you can be a great coach,
sure.
You can be a miserable coach, you can be whatever, but if you don't have some kids that can go,
matters not.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I could coach my tail off, and I have some years where we just haven't been that talented.
Right.
And I felt like I've done a great job working hard. And I mean, really, this kid's better. Think about how good he is now compared to back here, but we're still not winning games.
Mm-hmm. The bottom line is everything.
When you get those kids that can do some of those things and you still are continuing to teach and work and do those, now you start to build that culture that you're looking for. And that's one thing that's been wonderful here is at Carl Albert has just been having established that culture early on and that winning attitude, not just through basketball, but through the school itself and the athletic programs. Now those younger kids see, look what they're doing as juniors and seniors to get to where they are. I'm going to start doing those things so I can be there too, and it starts feeding on itself.
For sure.
Yeah. So
you used a great word a while ago, Coach. You said evolution. And what I think about when I think about that word is where the game is now versus where it was some time ago. It's still the same game.
Yes.
But for instance, I remember back when the dunk was what was sexy.
Yes.
That's what everybody was striving for. Want to get those hops up, buddy.
Yes.
Now all of a sudden it's the long ball.
It's the step back 3.
Yeah, man, more finesse. But I guess what I want to ask you is, have you ever found it difficult being grounded in your principles and believing in what you believe in? Have you ever struggled with, okay, this is something that I may need to shed a little bit versus this is something I need to keep? Is it a trial and error thing?
A little, yes. But to answer your question, 100% true. Yes, I have changed some things that I thought were if we don't do this, we're not going to win. and
locked in.
I've moved away from some of those things because I've seen, particularly, and I can say this, it's been different, obviously different here, the culture of the athletes and things like that than Choctaw. There was a different set of kids at Choctaw that we worked with, and our game plan was a little bit slower game plan, a little more deliberate.
Right.
We weren't as explosive. We had some kids that could play. We had some kids that can score. I had a couple of really, really good kids that were good college players. And we just didn't have we weren't a high level of athleticism, and we didn't have a bunch of them, but we had some good kids. So you kind of had to, there's your philosophy, you kind of work around that. Well, I got over here, my mind is thinking kind of the same way.
Overcoaching, huh?
Oh my goodness. And I'm getting out here going, did you just see that move that kid made? That was nothing to do with our offense whatsoever.
Right.
And he just blew right by a guy and finished at the rim.
Couldn't draw that up.
Right. And so for me now, I have to look at it and go, all right, I'm going to have to take my hands off a little bit and not X and O so much with these guys and put them in positions to let them use the God-given talents they have to the best of their ability, but coaching in a way where you just don't let them run rampant and do whatever they want, but get them in a position where their skill level can succeed. And, as I mentioned, I grew up in a coach's house. My dad was a coach, and he was very, of course, this was back before the three-pointer.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, so it's all
twos, baby.
Structure, get it into the post, easy layups, post moves, get to the free throw line, 15, 20 passes in a possession. I mean, just, moving the ball, some of that old school type stuff, and I really embraced that, and it worked great at Choctaw. I'm getting these kids out here at Carl Albert, and after a couple of years, I'm going, I'm not letting them do what they're good at. Mm-hmm. I'm stopping them. Now, there's some theories, that I have that are baseline that I don't give up on.
Right.
I'm not a big dribble heavy guy. I don't like to see a guy out there bouncing it around, patting it around, trying to show the crowd how good he is, and then make a move. I'm not that kind of guy. I want them to move their bodies and move the ball and things like that. But I realize there's also a chance where a kid can make 2 quick dribbles and get to the rim and either finish or kick it to somebody else and make a play. So those things, I had to evolve to that. And it was actually kind of interesting in my heart, because for a little bit I thought, I'm kind of turning my back on my dad and his philosophy, because I grew up with this, and I saw what he did.
And you saw it work.
I saw it work. And even the coaches, I didn't play for my dad. I played for a couple of the guys, and they were similar, in that environment. And I thought, man, I'm giving up on the culture that I grew up in. But then I thought, no, I've got to give these kids a chance to be as successful as they can and put them in a position to be the best they can at what they do. Right. With some control, with some philosophy, with some theories behind it. But, we're still very fundamental, very, very basic. But, man, when you got some kids that can do some of the things that I've had, for me to not let them do those things would be silly. And so that's where that's a great question, because that really is something I've had to work with through the years. And I even spoke to somebody today about, as a head coach, if you aren't willing to learn and change, you're not doing the right things. You're not doing the best for your program and for your kids and for your career. You've got to be able to look at things, because you're right. I mean, the game has changed so much now, and we're not a 3-happy type program. I mean, I might have some years with some great shooters, and we'll shoot more than other times, but that has become a great factor in the game, and you've got to give kids that have the ability to do that freedom to do that, and feel confident that coach isn't going to yell at me over there on the sideline as soon as I pull a 3.
Right.
There's good shots and there's bad shots, but you got to give a kid an opportunity to be successful. So yeah, I've had to make some changes. Defensively, I'd say maybe not a whole lot there. I feel like my foundations have been pretty similar throughout my coaching career defensively.
That's a non-negotiable right there.
It kind of is, though. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do with defense, but it really comes down to some basic structures of working hard and being in the right place at the right time. And if you can take those 2 things and throw some athletes out there that'll do it right, man, you can really cause some problems. And so I probably haven't changed a whole lot on that side of the ball, but offensively, absolutely. And of course, year in and year out, you have different kids. Some years you got some bigs, you need to give them the ball. We haven't had a lot of bigs here. We're usually pretty guard heavy, and we've kind of played that type of game, but you have to tweak that a little bit, I think. But even just philosophy-wise, I've had to adjust that a little bit over the years. Yeah, for sure.
With time, has your taste as a fan in terms of what style of basketball you like to watch, has that evolved with the way the game has now? Are you still a system guy that you'd rather watch, or you like to see
I really am.
You are?
I really am. Yeah.
Right.
I'll have to admit.
I respect it.
Some of the coaches say, "Hey, we just like to go, and I like to let my kids just play." At least at the collegiate level, if you recruit to that, you can be successful with that.
Yeah.
I still think the guys that run stuff to get their kids in a position to score, with their gifts and their talents, I think is still that's where I like. I mean, who wouldn't love watching this? But who can't enjoy watching Gonzaga right now?
Man,
I mean, it's just a system.
It's clinical, man.
It's unbelievable. And we were just watching it the other night at home, and one of my sons, he goes, "Dad, just every pass is crisp.
It is.
Every cut is sharp.
Everything serves a purpose.
Everything serves a purpose, and that's kind of where I'm geared, Now, some of the ones that are run and gun, fired up, if you got kids that can do that, to me, it's a little more of a gamble because it's not always going to go that way for you. But it's I don't hate it. that's really not my cup of tea. But I've had to I've had to kind of back off a little bit and watch and enjoy some of that. I mean, you can watch a guy that, like Steph Curry or a Klay Thompson. I mean, good grief, those guys they're phenomenal. There's
a lot of IQ that goes in there too.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And I tell you what was great. We were talking about this at lunch with my kids, and my oldest son, he goes, Dad, I don't know if you saw this, and I have zero social media, so I didn't see it. But he's like, hey, let me tell you about this. He goes, they did a study on Klay Thompson. In a game, he had 46 points. Mm-hmm. He took 9 dribbles in the game. 9 dribbles. And for me, as a coach that doesn't like a lot of dribbling, I'm going, hey, guys, come here. Yeah, check this stat out, He
can play for you any day.
And he's, obviously, he's unbelievable. But just that philosophy, this is what he does well. He has made that craft really good, and he doesn't need all the rest of that. And that's what, for me, I enjoy something like that. And I can appreciate a team like that plays that way because that's their craft. That's what they've excelled at. And for me, I'm more probably systematic, and I enjoy watching that a little more than the, kind of run and gun type style. But I mean, this year we played fast. I had some fast kids, and we could get up and down the floor. We threw it up, we laid it up, we pressed it, we pushed it. But if you come back and watch our 2 playoff wins in the state tournament, we ran some offense, and we ran some time down, because we felt like the other team that we were playing was really, really good offensively. And if we could make them guard and play some defense for a little bit longer time than they're comfortable with, it might disrupt their momentum a little bit. And so fortunately we had kids that could do that, and they did it well. But, I can enjoy a fast-paced game with people that are skilled at that. And for me, like you said, I'm kind of still back at that old school style a little bit, where I like to see some structure and things like that. So,
well, I'll tell you what, I think you found the balance though in your own program on, okay, here's enough for you guys to showcase what you can do, but here's the infrastructure that I'm putting in place. I watched you guys in the state semis against Ardmore, I believe it was this year.
Yes.
And you guys were getting off the rim off of a miss and up the court in like 4 seconds, and it was a bucket. And I'm like, man. Ardmore's not having to play much defense,
right?
But they're having it's like a stalemate offensively for them. They're passing it, they're pounding it, because you guys, I think a good man-to-man looks like a zone, and a good zone looks like a man-to-man. That was how much ground you guys were covering. But that fast break was almost looking like it was 5-on-0. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, this is fast-paced.
Yes.
But with structure, though. It wasn't just a bunch of running and gunning.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, in my mind, I'm like, I wonder how long it took to get that looking like it looked, like a well-oiled machine, Coach.
Well, I'll tell you, this is a funny story. I guess it was maybe a year or so ago, my oldest son, who's one of my assistant coaches, he played for me as well.
How great is that?
He was on the 2007 team that won the state championship. And so he has come back, and he's been one of my assistants for several years. But we were, I think it was birthday or Christmas, one or the other, and I can't remember exactly. He bought me a Bop It. The little Bop It, where it says what you're supposed to do and all this. And he had covered up the words, and he put shoot it, catch it, pass it, on all the different little tools. And the reason for that is when this group of seniors were sophomores, we called it the Bop It team. Because we had to tell them that's exactly, it was like a joystick over there.
Remote control on them.
And we had to, hey, pass it there, cut it there, score it, shoot it. And we're just walking them through everything. But on the tail end of that, we're telling them why. Here's why you should do this. When we go back and look at film, here's why you should have passed it. Look at the cut you've got right there. If you pass and cut, there's nobody there. There's not a soul in the lane. Read that and make that play. And so we call them the Bop It team. And I've got the Bop It in my office in there. It's still sitting in there. But then, like you're saying, now let's take those kids 2 years later as seniors. You're not seeing me say much on the sideline.
Right.
I'm cheering. I'm going, that was awesome. That was fantastic. Hey, keep playing hard. That's what my coaching was. Hey, let's keep hooking it up. Doing a great job. Run this set if you want to. And they were doing it. And it took time. They had to understand why we're telling them those things, but they were willing to be coached and listen and do that. And now you see the results of that 2 years later. These kids are out there executing stuff just one after the other without me saying a word. They saw somebody open, they threw it, and they laid it up. They didn't see them open, so they brought it up the floor. We got into a set. We run our stuff and get the guy the ball where he needs it and try to go score it. So, I give them a lot of credit. They really learned a lot. They're very mature, very intelligent group of kids. We were fortunate enough to win the academic state championship. I mean,
y'all got recognized for that right before the game.
Yeah,
I thought that was awesome.
You take that with a talented group of kids that are unselfish, and sky's the limit. So yeah, it's been an evolution for sure with that group, but what a great reward to get to see how they embraced that, and then they took that coaching and ended up turning it into a state championship. So.
Coach, how many state championships have you been blessed to win over here?
That's 3 for us now.
That's 3 for
Yeah,
y'all?
we got a runner-up. We got a 15. We got beat by Ike, Lawton Ike in the finals there, and then 16 we won it, and then now in 21 was our 3rd one. So yeah.
And you've been in every round of the state tournament, right?
Yes.
So you know what it feels like to the elation of winning one. You know about the being down in the doldrums, as they say.
Yes.
Having lost one. Let's talk about the other side of the spectrum. When you lose one, you got to go into that dressing room and say something to those guys, but that they're not in a space or place to receive any of it.
Yeah.
What's the message? What are you going there and say to those guys, man?
Well, for one, you certainly want to embrace those senior kids, because that's it. For some of them, that may be it. For some of them, they'll get to go play. And I've been fortunate to have some that have done that, but that's always been my focus, first of all, is say, look, you guys have invested yourselves in this, and I want to thank you for that. You've given me and my assistant coaches in this school a great deal of time, a great deal of effort, and this doesn't define who you are because you lost this game.
Right.
There's only one team that gets to finish their season without a loss, and that's it. So it doesn't define who you are, and it doesn't define our season. I mean, there's been years we were picked to win it, and we got beat. Not even in the finals.
Right.
We got beat in the quarters or the semis or whatever. There's been years we probably didn't even deserve or shouldn't have been in the state tournament, and we worked our way in, and we found a way in there, and didn't last long maybe, but we were fortunate to be there. And so to me, that's always the focus, is let's try to get a hold of those kids and get their attention and say, look, this doesn't define who you are. Somebody's going to lose. And that's just that's life.
That's competition. If you call it a competition, there must
be
a victor.
There's going to be a winner and a loser. Yeah, you're right. And so you've got to get them back to ground zero and say, look, let's focus and let's not forget what we invested in this and the time that we've spent together, and we thank you for that. And then for the younger kids, you try to help them embrace that moment that you don't want to feel like this again. See how this feels, just soak this up for a minute. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to feel this way again. So let's do what we have to do to prepare ourselves to not be in this position next year.
Right.
And you start working on next year, And, I think we've been able to do that. We've been able to walk out the door and say, you're going to carry the torch for us next year, sophomore or junior. You need to be ready to do this, and let's go get to work, and let's see if we can not do this again next year, and let's be in a different position. So, yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's 2 particular losses I can think of that I wasn't really sure what I was going to say when I walked in the locker room, because my gut was wrenched.
Right.
I mean, it's just wrenched. It's like we should have won that game. There's no reason we should have lost. We did. They made a play we didn't make. And we lost the game because for whatever reason it might be, whether it's my fault, whether it's a player's fault, whether it's just the other team just being better,
right?
Whatever it might be. There's been times where I've stood in that locker room and it's just been dead silent. And I'm just letting things kind of go through my head of, okay, how do we dig these kids out of this hole, and let them know that there's life after this? Because, I mean, we all know, athletics is a microcosm of life. And that's what I love about it so much, is you get to teach so many things. You can teach respect. You can teach discipline. You can teach teamwork. You can teach camaraderie. You can teach, how to deal with disaster. We had a young man that about 10 days, within 10 days or 2 weeks of after the quarantine, lost his mom. And we can't even go be with him, So we figured out a way to at least get to touch his heart, be in his life a little bit. those are the things as a coach that you look back on and you can reflect on and go, we lost a game. This really stinks. This is what we drive ourselves to. But one of these days, you're going to be a dad. One of these days, you're going to be a husband. One of these days, you're going to be an employee. And you're going to deal with some adversity. And how are we going to do with that? We're going to throw stuff around the locker room and kick stuff. And is that what you're going to do? Because you're going to get fired.
Yeah, throw a fit.
You're going to get fired from your job if you act that way. And so those are some things that we focus on. And I've got, for me, this is certainly not all about me, because I've got a staff that's just incredible. My assistant coaching staff is unbelievable. I mean, those guys are, I can't say enough about them and what they've done for our program and how they helped to continue the culture and how they teach these young men about being men, not just basketball players. And I'm super fortunate in that area. Those guys have just been tremendous. And that's one thing I can say that they don't lose focus on either, is the bigger picture. There's more to it than just the game.
Always.
And we love it. We love the game. We drive our kids. We work our kids. We want to be the state champions every year. Mm-hmm. But, at some point in time, you've got to be a productive citizen. And we want to, that's one thing I think our coaching staff has done a good job of, at least is trying to relate that message. You're not successful 100% of the time with that, but you do want to continue to send that same message. So walking into a locker room after a horrible loss in a state tournament and looking at those kids just losing it in the locker room, trying to decide what you're going to say is tough. It really is. And, sometimes you don't know what to say. You just try to get something to dig them up out of that pit, and let them know you love them, and just move on.
Well, I just try to talk to them long enough for the faces to dry up.
Yes.
Don't let them all see you cry.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Let's keep it in here.
Yeah, and we kind of, as guys, I think that's a guy thing.
Yeah.
But winning it or being in the dance as often as you are, does it ever get old?
Oh man, no way. Absolutely not.
Still get the same butterflies, fire burning, all that.
I tell you what, and so as many years as I've been doing this, I've been married for 34 years, something like that, and 33 years. Having, my wife has experienced all of that with me along the way, and we've learned things about each other with different parts, but she knows when it comes time for regionals, when it comes time for area, she just leaves me alone.
Because 3 weeks.
She knows what I'm going through that day. When it's area, we've been fortunate to be in area games on the winner's bracket, where if you win, you're in. Mm-hmm. We've had the challenge of going through the loser's bracket, where
back to the basket
you
game.
got to win that game or that's it. And she just leaves me alone because she knows how it is, what that day is like. And, it doesn't change. I mean, this year, area, weirdest thing ever, we get to host an area.
Right.
Because of how the whole quarantine thing and the facilities,
limitations.
Nobody wants to do it. And
right.
So OSSAA comes up with this plan. I'm going, what? We get to host area? No, this is a deal.
Yeah.
And so, you would think, well, gosh, you're getting to be in your own office. You don't have to travel. You got to be relaxed, And
y'all just hosted regionals.
We had just hosted
right?
regionals, but still all day long, I'm barely eating. I'm worried sick. Is everybody going to be good? My kids are going to be ready to play. Are we going to lay an egg on the floor? Are we going to do what we do? And it's just that all day. And then when it's over, it's like, hey, this is awesome.
It was all worth it.
And our kids, I really felt like we were in a great position to win the area game. I mean, Coweta had some kids that could score it and had some little bit of size, which was a little concerning. I felt like overall that we were probably the better team, and at least, especially at that time of the year, I thought we were playing really, really well. So I kind of expected us to win, but you just never know. And you certainly can't hang your hat on that and go, oh yeah, we're winning tonight, no problem. I've never been there.
As soon as you do that, it's like, oh really?
So yeah, absolutely. And you're on the tail end of the other side. But
that's it.
It was one of those. I definitely was totally excited about it. It was one of those where I really felt like we should have. And when we did, it was kind of like just a reaffirmation that night, But there's been nights where, holy cow, I've just about to lose it. I'm so excited, that we've won. And it doesn't get old. I love it. And I love it for the kids because you're going to graduate somebody, and there's a next group coming in that hasn't done that. They haven't got to experience it. Maybe they've been on the team, but they haven't been the kids on the floor that have been doing it. And huge difference. And so for that, just to get to let those kids get to feel that excitement of getting to go to the state tournament, man, it's awesome. It doesn't get old, definitely not.
Now that it's not even a month removed from that experience, how long does it take for you to get back in the saddle and start revving up that motor for the spring and for the summer, moving into next season?
Well, the way it kind of works for us, fortunately, we've been in the state tournament for, several years back to back to back. And so usually it leads into spring break.
Right.
So
forces you.
Win or lose, you've kind of got to shut down.
Yeah.
And you get to shut down and either get over the loss and kind of get yourself back up and ready to go again, or just get to enjoy the win and kind of relax and let your body unwind a little bit and your mind unwind, and then you're back to school. Well, usually that first week back is kind of laid back for me, and so it's still kind of finishing the season, checking stuff in, having some exit meetings, just kind of preparing kids for what you're going. The next week, like today was the next week. Here we go. So
started, baby.
The kids that are going to other sports, we're sending them. You guys go help them win. The ones that are in the gym, get your shorts on, get your stuff on. We got skill work to do. We're going to work on this skill today. We're going to work on that skill today. We're going to learn how to post up. We're going to learn how to beat somebody off of one quick dribble. We're going to start working on those things. And so for me, that preparation has started again. And it's going to be new for us because we're graduating 11 seniors, what we called our starting six. They're going, and we got some kids that are going to have to step in and play some new roles. And so I think it's time. It's not too early to start preparing them and getting them ready. So yeah, we're back at it again and hooking it up and trying to head for next year.
Explaining that whole machine as you basically just illustrated for me. Would you tell me the difference in your opinion between coaching and running a program? Because you all have what I would consider to be a program out here.
That's an excellent subject. I mean, I'm gonna deflect that back to my assistants. It's just, I think as a head coach, it's more important for you to establish what you want your culture to be, not teaching kids necessarily and coaching. I think any good head coach would say the bulk of your coaching is going to happen in practice and in front of the film and those kinds of things. You're directing traffic during a game.
Sure.
You've coached, you've taught, you've prepared. Now you're just directing traffic. You're subbing in and out, making strategic moves, but your coaching has taken place behind the scenes. And for me, I think that's a great subject to talk about because building that I use this word culture a lot, and I think building that groundwork of how your program is going to be run and organizing and directing the program is so much more than just coaching. You can X and O all you want, but if you don't have a kid that trusts you, you don't have a kid that's invested in you and that wants to play for you, then he's going to go out and screw around and do some stupid stuff on the court that's not going to be successful. And he may be talented and gifted.
It always happens that way. The knuckleheads, they always are gifted.
Yes. Jesus, but if you could get them to do what you want to do, and so for me, this is, without a doubt, probably the biggest strength of our program is I know whether I'm coaching on this end or I'm coaching on that end, I know what's going on the other end is exactly the same thing that I would be saying. I don't have to turn my head and worry about the drill that's happening on the other end with my assistant coaches that are running it. And honestly, now, I mean, I can say this, they're probably like, man, you don't ever do anything anyway. I don't know what you're talking about. There's a little bit of truth to that.
Right.
I find myself standing right here at half court much of practice, and they're running that end and they're running that end, and I'm just sitting here watching and kind of directing traffic a little bit. And I mean, that to me, it's just that I could not show up and those guys could run it like a system without a hiccup. And that's just I can't say enough about that blessing of having those many, those guys. 3 of the 4 have been with me for probably 10 years or more. 3 of my 4 assistant coaches, and the other one is my youngest son who just jumped on a couple of years ago, and 3 of those 4 are former players of mine.
Mm-hmm. So they know the system.
The other one's been with me for either 11 or 12 years now. And I mean, they just, not only have they invested in it, but they believe in it. Mm-hmm. And they know what we're doing is successful. So I think as a head coach, you got to lay that groundwork and say, here's my philosophy. Here's the baseline of what we're going to do. This is what we're going to build our program on. And we're not gonna adjust those things. We're not, like we talked about earlier, that defensive philosophy, we're not changing that defensive philosophy.
That's what it is.
The offensive philosophy is gonna be the same as well, but we're gonna tweak it. We got to tweak it from year to year with this bunch or that group or whatever. But the basic things, the foundations are these things. And once you establish that, and I mean, certainly if you have an assistant coaching group for that longevity, that amount of time, you don't have to reinvent that every year with a new guy.
Right.
You just roll with it. And now, I mean, I've got, one of my, 2 of them I would say are my strength and conditioning guys. They do all of that. I don't touch it. I don't go to the weight room with them. I don't tell them what to do in the weight room.
They got it covered.
They run it. They do it. They tell me, hey, here's what we're doing. We're going to do this on game day today. You got it. It's yours. You take care of it. The other ones, they're jumping in and doing skill work. Hey, we're going to split up post and guards today. I don't even say, hey, you got post, you got guards. They go. Mm-hmm. And they get to work. And they know exactly what I want done. They know what they want done, and they get it done. And so I think you have to build that environment, and it's not just coaching X's and O's. That is part of it. But I think the base of that is establishing what you want your program to look like, and then getting people surrounding you that are going to invest in that same philosophy. And then you just let it grow from there. And then the coaching part of it becomes easy after that. Because, this is what's been a blessing here, is like I mentioned earlier, you see this little sophomore or freshman over here watching those seniors do what they're doing.
Right.
And they're going, that's successful. That's working.
I think I'm doing that.
I'm going to do that. Yeah. And so now, simple. You start saying, hey, and even as a coach, and one of my freshman coaches, golly, that's where they start with. You guys see what they're doing? You ain't doing it right now. So we're going to change, and you're going to do it that way, because they've been in this program for 4 years, and they know what's successful, and that's where we're going to get you. And so that's kind of where we're going to be this next year with some of these young kids. They're going to need to grow up in a hurry and remember and think about some of those things we told those older kids, and they're going to need to embrace it. And just having that culture through the coaching staff to be able to say the same things, teach the same things.
Universal language.
It is. And it's just, I mean, it makes my job a piece of cake for that matter. I can just take hands off and say, you guys take care of it. You got it. And, there's been times, especially this year, more so than any other year, I'm getting out here, getting ready to start practice. Hey, we need to talk. We got a COVID issue. So I'm on the phone for 20 minutes.
Right.
We got practice starting, and I'm wanting to be in practice, but I've got to deal with this situation. Well, there go my coaches. Boom. Let's go. We're in stretch lines. Let's get in it. The clock went off. Let's go. And, those kids respect that, and the kids do it, and that's, for me, that kind of thing is just you couldn't ask for anything better. So.
Well, you've been blessed to have a staff intact for better than a decade.
Yeah.
Maybe before that point, at any point in your career as a head coach, was it ever difficult to delegate responsibilities?
It was. Yeah, it really was. And I've had times where I feel like that kind of helicopter coach,
just hovering.
Where, everything. And I'm hey, hang on just a second. I'll be right back. And go to the other end and say, hey, we're not doing it that way. We got to do it this way.
Right.
This is how we're going to do it. And you got to balance that a little bit, because you can't embarrass your coach in front of the kids, but you also can't let your kids do the things that they're doing right then. And so there have been times where I've had to juggle how I structure practice so that I can be overseeing the whole thing all the time.
Yeah.
And then as I see a coach be able to handle it, then I can leak it out a little bit and let him take a little more responsibility. But yeah, there's been times, and honestly, my wife would confirm this. I'm a hard person to help because I'm a very hands-on, do-it-yourself guy.
Right.
Even at home, I like to do-it-yourself stuff. I like to do stuff and fix it and all this kind of stuff. And
figure it out.
I don't need help. I can do this. And that's something I've had to embrace, that weakness, and say, you need to let these guys help you. You're holding not only yourself back, but you're holding them back to not get to spread their wings a little bit and do some things that they're good at, and you're not letting them do it because you're too hard to help. And so I'm not one, a lot of times it'll go, hey, I need you to do this, you to do this, you to do this, and you to do this. I've learned to do that better. What's been a blessing with my coaches is they'll come and say, hey, I'm going to take this today. I'll take this aspect today. Hey, do I need to go throw the laundry in? I'm going to go throw the laundry in. Hey, the basketballs are already out. Those kinds of things. And then in practice, them being really actively involved in saying, hey, I'll take this group. I'll take the other end. And those kinds of things. So for me, it's been a learning experience for me to be able to let go and not be that hovering type coach and let those guys do their job. There have been times when I felt like for the best of the team, I got to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, as you've mentioned, when you have guys this long, I'm not worried about it at all. But there's been some years where I've had turnover, and I've got a new coach here, one that I've had for 2 years, maybe one that I've had for no years that's just coming in new, and I'm not about to let them loose, until I trust them.
Exactly.
And so
Keyword.
that's been a challenge. It has. And I think that's something as a coach, again, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you got stuff to learn.
Sure.
You don't have it all figured out. And even now, as many years as I've been involved in it, I'm still open to looking for some new things, things that'll make that kid better. What are some drills that we can do that might emphasize this aspect of the game that I don't do? Because, after a while, you kind of get in a rut. You do the same things over and over, same drills, same, and some of them work. Some of them have stood the test of time,
Sure.
but
you can still bore yourself sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you feel that way, your boys.
Yes, you got to get some fresh things in there, and some days, I've gone to my coach and say, hey, you got such and such warm-up drills today. I don't care what you do something different. You take it.
Let's switch it up.
And let's do something different. And I think it's good for the kids to get to see that as well. And also in that regard, I think it builds that camaraderie that, let's say we're in the middle of a game and we get a timeout and I step out to grab a kid and say, hey, we need to do this. Those kids are listening to those assistant coaches over there too. They got their attention and they trust them because they've seen them in practice bark the same things I'm barking, teach them things that make sense. And now they trust those assistants instead of just walking by them and going, no, man, you're not Coach Price.
Yeah.
They're going, yes, sir. I get what you're saying. I understand, because they've built that trust level with them as well. And I think that's really important as a head coach to build that within your system, that those kids also respect what they're saying. Because if you think you got it all figured out as a head coach, you got all the answers, you're killing yourself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
And you're gonna run out of gas.
Absolutely.
Burn out quick.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
And Coach, you made reference to your wife a moment ago, and here's a question where she may be relevant again. How hard are you to deal with after a loss?
It's probably better now.
Okay.
I would say now it might be a little better now than it has been in the past. I mean, there were years where you're just getting beat up, or you lost a really big one, and it's just, golly. I mean, I just I don't even want to be around anybody. I don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah, just let me be miserable right now.
And she's been great at balancing that, and I would say now I'm probably better at that, because especially during the season, I don't look at losses so heavily as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it as a stepping stone to where we're still headed in March. It's a learning tool. Before, it was just devastating. You know, we lost that game. Golly, I'm horrible. My kids are horrible. This program's horrible. You know, that kind
I'm
of thing.
rethinking everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, now you have to look at it at a different perspective. And you know, over the years, you can see that, well, that loss actually was really good for you. You really needed that loss. You know,
in hindsight, you recognize.
Yeah, in
that.
hindsight, for sure. And so over time, you see that. You still are discouraged. I mean, I go back to that Kingfisher game. They just kicked our tail. You know, I mean, they controlled the game from mid-second quarter till the fourth quarter. We made a little run, but we never really made a major threat. They just played a great game that night. And I was really discouraged after that because I thought we were better than that. And we were. We were a better team than we showed that night. But it also showed that we've got some flaws. Mm-hmm. We got some things that we better fix in a hurry if we're talking about the last Saturday in March.
Sure.
And so as a coach, you can, you know, an older coach, you know, after all these years, you can kind of look at it at that regard, be disappointed, be upset, but still look at the overall picture. But in my wife's case, I mean, she's been great at balancing that, you know, and, you know, she's had to come to me at times, go, hey, man, get over it.
Just
you know,
like that.
Let's go. You know, I mean, you guys stunk it up tonight. That's the bottom line. You stunk it up. You guys didn't play. Yeah, we got tomorrow. Let's get ready. Let's go. And you know, she's done a good job of that. And then she knows there's times where she'll give me some distance and give me some space and let me kind of get over it. But I mean, what a tough job being a coach's wife. I mean,
I keep hearing
for that many
man.
years. You know, we've been married since, I probably said the number of years wrong when I said it earlier. We've been married since 1986. So I guess it was.
This will be the 35th.
This will be 35 coming up, you know. So, and of those, 25 of those have been as a head, or 26 have been as a head coach, you know. So
wow.
That's a lot of games. And I tell you what makes it this is what makes it a blessing is she thinks those kids belong to her just as much as I do.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, Mama P, you know, they lean on her and she loves them and she takes care of them and those kids respect her. And I think that's part of what makes it work again. That's still part of that same culture that we talked about, you know. And certainly I've mentioned my assistant coaches, you know, and I've been blessed with the family. I've been blessed. They're invested in it as well. You know, I've got 4 kids. 2 of the sons work with me. The other one works for BSN, which is in the sporting goods. There
you go.
And so he's my rep, you know, so he's my sports rep. So
of course he is.
He takes care of me, and my daughter's finishing up playing at OBU right now. And so, but this is one of the coolest things for me was getting to go back and watch the state championship game. And from the perspective of one of the cameras, you can see my family that wasn't on the bench over here on this side. And every time there's a big play, I mean, they're going crazy. They're up, they're fist pumping, they're high-fiving. I mean, so for me, that part is incredible to know the investment that they're putting in emotionally, if not else. You know, all my boys played for me and I got to coach them. Now, I did such a great job with all 3 of them that they all went on to play college baseball.
There you go. So, yeah, Dad, thanks, but no thanks.
So great job,
here, buddy.
Great job, Dad. You know, but no, just to see that the investment that they have in what we're doing, it really means a lot to them. You know, we win the championship, and I turn around and here's my daughter on the floor hugging me. You know, she's fired. She's so excited. You know, and they're going around hugging the players, and so that part of it is a blessing. You know, and I couldn't ask for more than that. So
that's a beauty. Coach, I got 3 more things I want to throw at you, and I'll turn you loose. We talked about some winning. We talked about some losing. We're going to circle back to winning.
Okay.
Now, you being in a program, well, this being your program, it's established, it's successful, one of the best in the state in any class. Now, winning breeds winning. I'm pretty sure you've heard that saying before. But I also think winning can breed complacency sometimes, too.
Yes.
So how do you know when you come into this gym for practice after you all just had an emotional win the night before, or you've strung a few wins back to back in a row, and you know it's time to reset these guys?
Yes.
Maybe they're feeling themselves a little bit.
Oh, yes.
What does that look like for you, and then what do you have to do to get yours back right?
Yep. Well, you know, and you being in coaching would understand this. There's a couple of things players hate. They hate to run for no reason.
No reason.
You know, if they're going to run, let's scrimmage. Let's get our conditioning scrimmaging. Okay, we'll do a little bit of that.
Right.
But we're also going to sprint.
That's
and we're
right.
going to learn how to change directions. We're going to run some suicides. We're going to run some sprints. We're going to run some side to side, some 17 a minute.
Yeah.
You know, they hate those things. They hate, you know, as you look around this field house and all the number of stairs and rows of chairs, those are a motivational factor.
Yes, sir.
And so, you know, there's times I usually give them a little bit, and I'll bark at them a few times. If we've shown up in the gym and we're a little full of ourselves and we're kind of dancing around through our layup drills or our passing drills, you can kind of feel the air that we're not locked in.
Right.
And I'll give them a chance, and I'll blow the whistle, and I'll say, look, you guys aren't locked in. Let's get it fixed, or we're going to fix it. Yes, sir.
They know what that means.
And they either fix it or they don't fix it.
Uh-huh.
And then now you have the consequences of it. And I mean, on that note, this is, if I'm not mistaken, it was area week. And we had to practice in our older gym. So we're down there. We had just come off a regional championship. I think it might have been Tuesday of that week. So, you know, we're regional champs. We've learned that we get to play at home. We got a home court advantage for area. You know, we've seen our opponent, Coweta. We're doing some scouting and we're talking about them and that kind of stuff. And, you know, we feel like we're playing well and that kind of thing. And we kind of came in that way into practice that day. And this is in the playoffs. I mean, this is with senior seasoned players. And we're going along, and man, I can just feel the blood starting to boil.
Oh.
And it was about 10 minutes into it, and I'm just about ready to cut loose. And one of my assistants, right next to me, he just screams, "Get out! Get out!"
Just like
"Get out!" He says it about 5 or 6 times. And the kids they're not, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, no,
he goes, "Get out!" Well, we have a door that goes out in the parking lot. He points to the door, "Get out!" The whole team exits the door, heads out to the parking lot. I stood my ground. I stood right there. He walked outside. No screaming, no hollering. He just looked at him in the face and said, "Look, here's where we are. Here's the point where we are. Coach is about to lose it in there because you guys aren't locked in. Let's get it fixed. You guys are a senior bunch of guys. There's no reason in the world we ought to be practicing this way." Now, you can do that with a group of seasoned seniors. They get it because they've been in the stairs.
Yeah.
They've had to do that at times when we have blown a fuse and we've sent them. They know what's coming.
And they also know if y'all lose sooner than you're supposed to, they'll be the ones over there crying.
That's right.
It's urgent. Right. It's urgent now.
Now, with some younger ones, I probably wouldn't have that much rope. I'm probably just sending them to the stairs.
Yeah.
We're gonna make the point. And you're not going to come into this gym and mess around practice if we got to get prepared. And so, you know, those are, and as you well know, with teenagers, that's going to happen.
Oh yeah,
you're going to get more than one of those days in a season where they just don't feel it that day, and you feel like you're just banging your head against a wall. And you just got to make some changes. You got to make a point. You got to have some consequences, and you got to make them understand it's not because I don't like you. It's not because I think you're a bad person or a bad player. It's because our standard is up here and you guys aren't meeting that standard. And if we're not meeting that standard, we're not getting better. And so we're going to do something to get better. We're going to get in shape today.
You know,
we're going to get in shape. Here we go. So here we go. We're going to do some, and tomorrow we'll see if we can do a better job. You know, so
usually that day after is a heck of a lot more productive.
Oh, baby, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, they know what time it is.
They
now.
get in. And, you know, as most coaches do, hey, when you come in the door, your school day's over. Your girlfriend relationship is over. Your homework assignment, your whatever it was, is over. It's time to play. It's time to work. It's time to get after it. And that doesn't happen every day. And that part of the grind of a coach is challenging, you know,
That's right.
to stick with that and stay consistent with that because over, like you said, you know, how long, it's the longest season of all the sports.
Yes.
And,
no doubt.
you know, it encompasses both semesters. It encompasses fall, winter, spring. You know, it encompasses all of that. And over that amount of time, even as a coach, you know, there's times when you walk in the gym and you're like, man, I don't know if I feel like it today.
Yeah.
But I'm not about to let them know that.
No.
And we are going to work today. And you kind of got to get yourself back at it and get going again. And so, yeah, that's a definite challenge. It really is. And, you know, even now with having won a championship, and we got to turn around and we're going to hook up next fall, you know, those guys they're not about to step in that gym and go, hey, we're the state champs, man. You know, here we go. No, you're not.
No, last year.
That's right. That's exactly. That was 2021. Now we're working on 2022. So
I love that.
Yeah.
What are your hobbies outside of basketball, Coach? How do you decompress outside of coaching? What could I find Coach Jay Price doing?
Well, and in years back, I mentioned my boys were all playing baseball. I love to watch baseball.
Yeah.
Oh man. I honestly I would rather go sit at a baseball field on a spring day than go sit in a gym and watch a basketball game. I
Really?
love baseball.
You can
I
go
really
fan
do.
out, huh?
Oh man, it's. And I know people probably think I'm crazy for saying that because a lot of people hate watching baseball because it's
I hear
slow.
it all the time.
You know, it's a slow game.
Sure.
I love the strategy of it. I just love being outdoors and, you know, chewing on sunflower seeds and watching, even if it's my kids or not. Funny, we're talking about that. My wife came up today and we finished our workout and we were going to run some errands. So we got out in the truck and I'm firing up the truck and she hops in and she goes, is anybody playing baseball anywhere today? Let's go watch a game. And so we checked to see if Carl Albert was playing at home or not, and they were not. They were on the road, but it was just that, and we shared that. We both share that love, and so that's one thing. Now I've only got one playing still. He's playing professionally.
Hey, there you go.
And he's out of state playing, and he'll report here in a month or so. But so we don't have that advantage. So that's something I really enjoy doing. I love do-it-yourself stuff, like I mentioned earlier. I love to work on things and fix
his
things,
hands dirty, baby.
and do stuff like that. So that part I enjoy. I love to outdoors, camping, skiing, that kind of stuff. I love to do that. That's something that we really enjoy. For years, saying my love for baseball, our family vacations were us going to Major League Baseball parks around the country.
Oh yeah.
And so we'd take a summer and go, you know, a 2-week trip, and we'd go wherever and catch as many parks as we could while we were gone and make a vacation out of it, but go to the major league fields. So that's something we've enjoyed.
Y'all covered some ground, I would imagine.
Oh, we did. We've been to, I think we've made it to 20 of the 32 parks.
Oh,
so we still got a few to go, but
closing in.
It was a lot of fun. We get to do it still a little bit, but it's harder now as the kids are grown and, you know, their lives are different than they were younger, but it's still something we all enjoy together and embrace. So
Hell of a memory there, Coach.
yeah.
Well, here's how we'll wrap this thing up.
All
I
right.
want you to dig in the crates, in the archives. It
Okay.
could be something far back or it could be something relatively recent. With all due disrespect, right? There was a team that beat you guys that shouldn't have. A loss that you could go back to and run it back.
Yeah.
Which one of those games would it be?
Claremore.
Really?
State semifinals, 2017. They were talented, no doubt. I mean, they could shoot the stinking lights out of it. I mean, they could fill it up.
Right.
I had 2 Division I basketball players. I had 2 or 3 other Division I football kids or Division II football kids. We had athletes, and we
Right.
had 2 players, Mason Harrell being one, who's probably one of the best players, you know, arguably that's come through in recent years.
Yeah, that boy's a problem.
And Trey Hopkins, another Division I kid, very talented, very senior heavy team, very mature team, and we were up 17 at one time, I think in the second half, even early third quarter, and the game just started to evolve, and you started seeing us make a few mistakes. Claremore started making some shots, gained some confidence. Their little point guard just got hot, started making some plays. I mean, they played lights out. They were a really good team. But I think talent-wise, and I think even talking to the coach, he would say the same thing. Talent-wise, we were probably more talented than they were. But team-wise, they really did a great job that day in that game. But it was one of those, we had multiple opportunities to put the game away, and we didn't. And then it came down to the end. We had a shot to win it in overtime or in regulation, and we didn't make a good choice on a shot selection. I felt like we could have got a little bit better shot, and we missed, so it went to overtime. And it went back and forth, back and forth. We went up we either up one or tied. We had a putback, and they got the ball, and they go down, and they make a play and hit a shot with about 2 seconds left in overtime to take the lead. We called timeout. We had a heave shot to win it and missed the shot, but this was coming off of a state championship in 2000, a runner-up in 15. We missed a shot at the buzzer to win the game in 15. 16, we tip one in at the buzzer to win it in 16. And this is 17 now, where we're thinking we're going to win one back-to-back.
Yeah.
And and even now, it's hard to talk about. Me and basically the same coaching staff, we don't talk about it very much. I've got a couple of coaches that just won't bring it up. They won't talk about it. Yeah, it happened. It's over. And with all due respect to Claremore, golly, like I said, they played their tails off. They did what they had to do to win the game, and they did, and they earned it. They were a great team that night, but it was one of those from our standpoint. We felt like we should have won the game. And we felt like we were the better talented team, but I think that night they might have been the better team as far as just performing the way they needed to. But that was a tough one because we had in the back of our mind, we were ranked number 1. We were the team. We were the team to beat. And we won a really good game the quarterfinals and put it on somebody pretty good, I felt like. And, we were pretty high on ourselves that next night. And it just kind of fell apart late in the game. And it was just so hard to watch. I didn't have enough timeouts.
Right.
It was
You
just
got 5, you needed 10.
At some point in time, your kids have got to make plays.
That's it.
And it just wasn't happening. And that was a tough one. That was a really tough one to lose. But, and in hindsight, I can think of some games that we shouldn't have won, and we did. We made some plays and won. And so as a coach, you have to kind of balance that out a little bit.
Yeah.
But
it balances itself out.
It does. It does. But that's probably one of the toughest to take and to think about that we let that one go. So.
Well, you got a lot more bright spots in your memory, I'm sure, than the dark ones. But I appreciate the hospitality, Coach. This has been a blast.
Sir. Oh, man, I've enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, man. Maybe down the road we'll be able to reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Salute to you, my friend.
Yes, sir. Thank you.